Hello, I'm Jose with FrSky North America. In today's video, we're going to talk specifically about nose wheel steering and setting up a nose wheel steering mix if you have a plane with nose wheel steering and gear and retracts. This is the way that I set up my planes, and obviously every plane is different, but you get an idea of how I set it up. There's a couple of things that I want. First of all, I want my nose wheel steering on a separate channel than my rudder. And that way I can do my own rates for nose wheel steering. And if I wanted to, I can add expo to it. And I can also have separate trim. And I do like to set up in nose wheel steering when the gear is up that my rudder is not affecting my nose wheel. So when the gear is up, it won't affect it. And when the gear is down, then the rudder starts moving. Those are the things that I will go ahead and show you how to set up when you set up your nose wheel steering. So I have a blank model here, and it's really got nothing in it. Let's go over to model and go to mixes, and we'll see that I got my ailerons, elevator, throttle, and rudder, and that's it. So the first thing that I need to set up, obviously, is my retract channel. So I go anywhere in this list and hit enter. And when I hit enter, I choose add, and this will add a new mix. What kind of mix do you want? I'll just do a regular free mix, and I'll put it in the last position. Let's go ahead and name it. And when you are in the keyboard entry, over here we have some cursor controls, and the center button is delete. So I'll just use that to delete the name. And now I will call it retracts or gear. Let's call it gear. There it is. The source will be my switch, and that's SF. And all you got to do is go to output and choose an empty channel and plug your retracts into that channel. So it looks like channel 6 was free, and that's it. That's it for your retracts. Usually that'll be enough to make it work. And the only thing you got to do is turn on your model and see if the gear go up and down with the switch the way that you have this set. So for example, if I want this to be gear up, and the gear is going down, now I'll have to reverse it. There's a couple of ways that you can reverse it. One of them is go to Model Outputs and reverse it on the outputs for channel 6. The other ways are in here in your mix. Over here, you can reverse the output of this mix over here, or you can go over here to Source and press and hold and choose negative. So when I did that, I changed the SF switch to work backwards. And that's it. So that's the way I like to do it. Okay, so let's just say now you flip your switch and the gear are working correctly. And we are pretty much set with a retract mix over here. So I'll go ahead and return to get out of that a couple times. So I'll go back to my mix page. The next thing that I will make, I press enter and I'll add a new free mix, and I'll put it in the last position again, and let's call this one steer. And this will be my steering channel. Next thing I do is choose a source, and it's going to be rudder. And now, just so you know, the source is rudder, it is the rudder stick. And because it's the rudder stick and it's not the mix or the channel, we don't have the rudder trim as part of it. So the good thing is the rudder trim will not affect this mix because I chose the rudder stick, but you can add your own trim a different way, which is what I will do. Now I go down to the bottom and go to output, and again, I'll just choose the next available output, which looks like 7 is free. So we'll choose that. Doesn't have a name, yes, so we'll call this one steer. There it is. Okay, so now that we have our basic set up, we can do a couple of things. Obviously, we can go over here, and weight is essentially rate. So we can go ahead and adjust this, edit, to the weight that we want. So I generally, for nose wheel steering, for most planes, I find that 50% is a good starting value, and I can adjust from there if I need to. Most of the time, I can leave it at 50 and it's fine. And if I wanted to, I can add, so add a new action. And the action that I want would be curve, and we're going to add expo. So let's choose expo over here. Okay, and in that expo, whoops, I can go ahead and make it whatever expo I want, say 30%. And you can have different rates if you want. You can add a new curve. Like let's just say, let's add another curve over here. And then now we can do it by switch, and we can have a different one for this one. So for the 3 different positions of the switch, you can do curves, which would be your expo. But I think for nose wheel steering, I generally just have 1 expo and 1 rate. You want to stop? Yes, I want to stop that. So I just deleted that, and now we just have 1. All right, so I'm going to back up to the main mix, which is right here. Okay, so this is it. This is your basic nose wheel steering over here. Okay, so let's add a couple of things. And one of the things I always set up for nose wheel steering with retracts is when the gear is in the up position, I want it to stop turning when the gear is up. And when I flip the switch to gear down, then the rudder does affect nose wheel steering. So we'll set that up. Now, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just go to active condition and make this on the gear switch. So gear is down, for example, switch in a down position. Now it'll work. So if I go down to my outputs over here, now it works. And when I go up like that, then it's no output. I don't like that. I don't like to have no output going to that channel. So what I like to do, let me go ahead and get rid of this. So active condition, we'll make that always on. Whoops. Always on, there it is. And what I like to do is I will do it with a curve. So let's add a new action. And always on action curve. And we're going to add a new curve. So I'll go over here to this list and add. And let's call it gear up. So when the gear is up, what do I want the nose wheel steering to do? So type will be custom, and it'll be a 2-point curve. Go down here to points, but it looks like I don't have to adjust it. But what essentially I'm doing is I'm making a point where when the gear is up, it'll only be at 0. So right now this is 2 points, and I'll just put 2 points at 0, which it already is if I look over here. And essentially what that's doing is no matter where it is, it'll just stay in the center. And so that's the way I want it. So I'm going to back out of this, and instead of always on over here in this curve, is I will make it only when the switch is up, when the gear switches up. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at it. So here's our mix over here. Now look at the output over here and also over there. So the gear is up. I move it, it stays in the center. So no matter where the stick is, it'll just have the servo at the 0 position. And if I go gear down, all of a sudden, now it's got movement. And there. All right. So that's it for that basic thing. The only thing that we got to add now is trim. And there's a couple of ways you can do this, but the way that I like to run it is when my gear is up, I want my rudder trim to be for my rudder. And when the gear switches down, I want my rudder trim to be for nose wheel steering. And the way that we set that up is with vars. So I'm going to go over to the vars page, return out of this a couple times, and there. Once I go to this page, I'm going to go over to vars. And in vars, what you want to do is let's go ahead and add a new var. There it is. Let's name it. Let's call it nose. Whoops. Nose trim. So this is the trim for my nose wheel steering. And then over here in vars, range is the amount of range that you want to allow it to work. And the value is then your trim. So if you look over here, like it says 0, so this would be the trim value. But what we want to do is we want to be able to adjust it. So I can come down here to actions, and there's no actions in there right now. So let's add a new action, press the button, and over here, click on that. I choose when the gear is down. So gear is down by pressing the button down. And what I want over here is repurpose. Repurpose, trim rudder. And it's already on rudder, but we can choose it. There it is. And this is the amount per click of the trim. So let's do it 0.5%. Every time I click the trim, it'll move it 0.5%. All right. So now to test to see if this works, I'm going to go gear up. Gear is up. Look at the values at 0. I can move it. Doesn't do anything. Because right now it's working for rudder. Now if I do gear down, it repurposes the rudder trim, and then now it works. There it goes. All right. So this is now working. So now I can get out of this and go back to my mix over here, go to the steer mix, and then we got to put that var in there as trim. So let's go ahead and edit this steering mix. And over here, we add a new action, okay? And we go down here to the action that we want to add will be not trim, because trim is actual trim. It's going to be an offset. So offset when active, right now I can just offset it and adjust it, but instead of putting a value in there, I'm going to put a source. So press and hold, and then choose use a source. Now I can click in here, and category would be vars. And the member is nose trim, the one that we created, but since there's only one in there, you don't have to select it, it's already there. So there it is. Okay, so let's get out of this, and let's take a look at the graph and also the output over here. Trim is up, and, I'm sorry, gear is up. I'm going to move my rudder trim, does nothing. But if I go gear down, now it works. There's my trim, and you see that moving over there. Okay, let's test it on the output page just to see if the rudder trim still works. So I'm going to return, return, return. And over here at outputs, let's take a look at it. We're going to take a look at rudder, and we're going to take a look at steer. So it looks like channel 4 and channel 7. So gear is up, rudder trim works. Gear is down, steering trim works. And then gear up, same thing. I can go back and adjust my rudder, and it's not affecting my steering. And I can go gear down, and I can adjust that one more or less. All right. And let's go ahead and make sure that the gear up and gear down thing that we did earlier still works too. So right now, gear is up. And if you take a look, steering does not work. So that steering channel is deactivated with a curve when gear is up. When gear is down, now it works. All right. All right, so that's it. That is my setup for nose wheel steering. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment in this video, or feel free to email me at jose@FrSky-rc.com. Thank you very much, and have a good day.